Hey guys, so I've had the beta for about 3 weeks now, so I figured I'd do kind of like an overall thoughts on the, beta kind of video thing. I've been wanting to do it for a while, but I was waiting to see if my opinion would change about the game. Like, I had an opinion the day I started playing the game, 2 days after, a week after, 2 weeks after, but from like 2 days after I started playing until this third week that I've had the game, that opinion really hasn't changed in too many places, so I figured I might as well just put it out now instead of waiting until the beta's over. Overall, I think Gears 3 is going to be a great game. It's definitely going to be better than Gears 2. I won't get too far into that because I don't want to start talking about how I feel about Gears 2 at this point. But to put it simply, it'll definitely be better than Gears 2 in just about every aspect. And in certain ways, it'll be better than Gears 1. I also don't want to get too much into that because I could go on forever. But in some ways, it's going to be better than Gears 1, and in other ways, it won't be. The way I see it, as long as this game has stopping power, it's probably never going to be as fun as Gears 1 was for me. That's just me. I know some people love stopping power, some people don't care about it, whatever. Going into what I think is wrong with the game, the first issue and the biggest issue that I have is that Team Deathmatch and Capture the Leader, to an extent, need a real spawn system. I don't see why Team Deathmatch didn't have a real spawn system included, because they advertised it as it having one. So when the full game comes out, if it doesn't have one, I'm probably not going to play it that much, which is a shame because I think the Team Deathmatch setup is pretty good. It just needs a spawn system. It needs a way to prevent spawn camping. I mean, as it is even, the game tells you when spawns flip, which is kind of ridiculous. At the very least, they could have not told you when the spawns flip. I mean, it is entirely too easy to spawn camp on Team Deathmatch. I mean, when the full game comes out, if it doesn't have spawns for Team Deathmatch, I'm probably going to be playing Execution most of the time, just like Gears 1 and 2. If I want a game type to mess around in or to warm up on, I'll play King of the Hill, which I'll get into this later, but I think King of the Hill is a pretty amazing game type. Probably the best game type, at least in the beta. As far as the weapons go, I don't really feel like I even need to say this. The Retro Lancer's overpowered, the Sawed-Off serves no purpose whatsoever other than to piss people off, and the Hammer Burst is still wildly overpowered, which is obviously not going to change, because if they wanted to change it, they would have done something by now, seeing as how we had a whole 2.5 years of a game with an overpowered Hammer Burst. I mean, I won't get too far into that either, because I could go on for a whole video about each one of those individual weapons, but in essence, I think those are the guns that are the biggest problem, mainly because you spawn with them. It wouldn't be a bad thing for a power weapon to be overpowered, because at worst, you're seeing it once, occasionally on a map, one at a time, but these weapons you spawn with, and they just break the game in so many different ways. Outside of that, the other two spawning weapons, the Gnasher and the Lancer, I think they're good for the way the rest of the game sets up, but I do think the Gnasher has a little bit too effective, too much super effective damage range, where you can 90 point somebody or whatever, but I think that's necessary because of the sawn-off. If it wasn't for the sawn-off, I'd say reduce the range a little bit, but it's definitely going to be necessary as long as the Retro and Double Barrel stay in the game. The Lancer, I think, should have 50 shots instead of 60 in its clip. It's not that big of a deal, but at the end of the day, you can down 7.5 people with one clip of a Lancer in this game, which is ridiculous, but 50 shots, I think, would just be a little bit more balanced, because as it is, it already has the biggest clip in the game, so I don't think reducing it a little bit will necessarily nerf it. As far as pickups go, the only one that really gets to me is the Scorcher, because it's literally useless now. I never cared for the Scorcher in the first place, but the Retro Lancer just completely makes it useless. I mean, all the Scorcher really has going for it is that its execution is pretty sick. Outside of that, the gun's just terrible in every way possible. As far as the power weapons go, I think they're all pretty good. I mean, they pretty much nailed all of them. The boom shot's back to the way it was in Gears 1 when the game came out, but with one more rocket, which I've always wanted. The sniper, I think, could use a couple more bullets, like maybe 10, but they made the sniper work, so I'm not going to complain at all about the sniper. The torque bow is the same gun it's always been. I feel like maybe it's a little bit less accurate when you move in comparison to Gears 2. Maybe that's just me. And as far as the Digger goes, I think the Digger is an amazing weapon to add into the game. It stops people from camping a little bit, it can break setups, and it's fun to use. I mean, if you've gotten a direct hit kill with it, it's pretty satisfying. It's more satisfying than a sniper headshot is to me. That's just me. Maybe that's because the sniper's been in every Gears game, whereas the Digger's new. As far as the heavy weapons go, I mean, they're still kind of the same thing. They're just kind of gimmicks. The one-shot's fun, but so is the mortar. So is the Molter to an extent. If they made it so you could hip fire the one shot, even if you had to like charge it up or whatever, even if it was inaccurate, I think it would be a little bit better of a gun that way. The way it is right now, you're really just a sitting duck, and it's easy to take somebody out who has one. Moving on to the grenades, I don't know what happened, but whoever was in control of like the grenade area of the game fucked up big time, because first off, the inks are a fucking paradox. They're entirely overpowered, but they're also entirely useless at the same time. Basically, they're a guaranteed kill, which is ridiculous. That's overpowered. Anytime you can guarantee a kill, it's overpowered. But at the same time, once you throw it, if you don't, like, from the first instance that you throw it, from then on, it's useless. It's not like the Gears 2 ink where it can cover an area, where it can block off a piece of cover, where it can stop an exit point or an entrance point. It's just useless, which is ridiculous. I think the Gears 2 inks were perfect and they should have been brought back. That's just me, though. Maybe everybody else will have a different opinion on that. The incendiary grenades, I think, they're a cool addition. They're kind of skillful, which is always fun to actually see in this game. But at the end of the day, they're not that good of a thing to have in the game. I mean, they're fun. It's fun to direct hit people with them, but the carpet fire is too weak to really matter. You know, the very center of it's pretty powerful, but I think they need to make the edges a little bit more powerful. If they do that, it'll be a replacement ink to me. You know, make the spread a little bit bigger when it drops onto the ground and make the edges more powerful. It'll remind me of the ink. I think it'll be better than the ink because you'll actually be able to see through it too. As far as frags go, there's something wrong with the fuse time. It's like some kind of variable number that I don't know. I've seen all sorts of weird shit. I've thrown a grenade, had it blow up midair, and for no reason at all. I've seen it bounce around the ground and take a while to blow up. I've seen people blow up before the frag grenade blows up. I've seen the frag grenade blow up, and then 4 seconds later, people die. I don't know. There's all sorts of shit wrong with it, but if they got one thing right, it's the way that when you plant a frag, it takes like 3 seconds to blow up now. So at least they got that right. They got the most annoying aspect of the frag out of the way. I think all they have to do is make it so that it like makes sense when it's thrown, and then it'll be perfect again. It'll be like the Gears 1 frags. I think they got rid of the chain link reaction kind of thing too, which I always hated, so that's another plus for me. And as far as smoke grenades go, I mean, I don't think you should spawn with a weapon that stuns people. You know, make it so that the stun aspect of the smoke is a smoke that you pick up off the ground. Like on Old Town, they have smokes that you pick up. Those should have stun. Those smokes that you spawn with should only be smokes. That's just the way I see it. I mean, it's not as bad as Ragdoll is, for sure, but it's definitely not the way it should be in my eyes. You know, it's good that they have a purpose, but that purpose can be a little too overbearing sometimes. Moving on from all the weapons, though, I think the maps would be the next most important thing. I think the maps were pretty good. I mean, we only got 4. They could definitely be better, especially in the trenches and thrashball case of the maps. Trenches is just bad. I heard that they're making all sorts of changes to it and whatever. I don't like the dust storm. I don't like the setup. I don't like the weapon setup on it. I think it's overall just a bad map. It's not necessarily terrible. Like, it's not day one bad, but you know, if on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd probably give it a 4. Thrashball, I've already made a full video about Thrashball. They need to change the way that the up top area of the map dominates the map. And if they can do that, I think it'll be a pretty good map. Right now, I'd say it's playable, but it's something that could definitely be better. Most people I've talked to have said Checkout is the best map or their favorite map of the 4. I agree it's pretty good, but at the same time, not having a center of the map, having a gigantic crater in the center of the map is just a bad idea. You know, there's all sorts of angles and routes that you could take through that center of the map that are now gone. So, I mean, I don't like that. I don't particularly like the weapon setup and the layout, but that's just me. I still think it's a good map. If I was going off a 1 to 10 scale, I'd probably give Checkout an 8 out of 10. My favorite map, though, is Old Town. Old Town reminds me a lot of Gridlock. It's got kind of like that overall symmetrical, balanced kind of feel to it with 3 main areas of the map. And the one thing that I like the most out of it is that you can cross any area from any other area on the map. And it's also, despite the fact that it's narrow, which is probably its biggest flaw, it also has indents for the power weapons. So you can't just camp back and expect to be able to down somebody because an area is narrow, which was a problem with Gears 2 Gridlock. Not so much Gears 1 Gridlock, but Gears 2 Gridlock had that problem. I mean, if the map does have one serious big flaw, it's that one side of the map spawns on high elevation while the other side spawns on low elevation. I can see it being a problem in Execution and Warzone, but not as much in the Respawn game types. Getting back to the game types, like I said I would before, Team Deathmatch and Capture the Leader need a spawn system. Other than that, I think Team Deathmatch is pretty much about as good as it's going to get. I think it's a better idea to have it the way it is right now than it is on like a 1st to 50 kind of scale, because at the end of the day, you control whether your team wins or loses. You can't control one of your teammates going 0 and 50 and losing the match. At least you get one life every round that matters. So I like that idea. I think Capture the Leader needs to do something about how you have to hold the leader for 30 seconds consecutively. I think maybe adding in a secondary way to win, like a total time spent holding the leader, would help that a lot. Maybe something like 50 or 60 seconds total time. That way teams can't just drop the leader, pick him back up, and whore points out and all that. I just think forcing 30 seconds, I mean, not only could it cause boosting, but it also causes a problem where teams are just, it's so easy to make the other team drop the leader. You spawn, everybody on your team spawns with a smoke, you just all throw it at the leader, and he'll eventually be dropped. Outside of that, I think Capture the Leader just needs a decent spawn system. It doesn't need a great one, it just needs spawns around the map so that you're not spawning in 2 places all the time. Speaking of the spawns, I hate the wave respawn shit that this game still has. I think there should be a set timer, like 5 or 6 seconds, and every 10 seconds there's a wave spawn. And if you want to, you can choose to spawn in that wave. And if you do that, you and your teammates can spawn together. But otherwise, you get a 5 or 6 second spawn. That way you're not in this situation where you see the timer click down from 3 to 2 to 1 to 0, and then you're back to 15. You get a 20-second respawn. It's happening in Gears 1, it's happening in Gears 2, it's happening in Gears 3, and I can't stand it. I really want it to go away. So I want to, what I ideally would be for me to have 2 options when you spawn. Otherwise, just make it a set spawn, 5 or 6 seconds. Back to the game types, like I said before, King of the Hill is amazing. Of all the possibilities they could have done with Annex and King of the Hill from the last 2 games, I think everything about this King of the Hill is the best possible outcome. The way the hill moves, the way that teams spawn. I mean, the fact that it has a spawn system alone instantly makes it better than any other version of Annex or King of the Hill we've ever had. I mean, I can leave it at that, and I think everybody will agree with that, at least. The fact that you spawn in a place that isn't one of 2 set areas is always good. The only problem I have with it is I think the respawn shield's a little too long. I think it's at 3 seconds. I can't be completely sure about that, but if I was to change it, I would make it 1 full second. That way it's just enough to avoid something like spawning and having a mortar just drop on you and killing you, but it's short enough so that if you spawn in a wave and somebody's near you, because I have had people spawn right behind me, that people aren't shooting at you when people spawn behind you and you can't do anything back to them except run. Because I've had entire teams spawn behind me and I've had nothing that I can do about it, which is kind of messed up. I mean, it's great that there's a spawn system, they just need to lower the shield a little bit. Moving on to stuff like the dedicated servers, I think the game runs very, very smoothly, which is something I wasn't expecting. I was kind of skeptical about how much dedicated servers would help. I didn't think it would be any better than a really good host on Gears 2, but I mean, as far as I'm concerned, dedicated servers for the most part have been roughly as consistent as playing on LAN was for me. So, I mean, they're not always perfect, and when the game does go into peer-to-peer mode, it definitely is about as bad as Gears 2. But with the dedicated servers make a huge difference, and it's not just on connection, it's also on stuff like the cover system and anything that would be based around connection, I guess you could say. Stopping power isn't as annoying because of the dedicated servers, because you're not lagging around, warping around constantly. The view kick is still a problem, I think, but it's not as bad since you can actually expect where your shot's going to come out. Just general game mechanics seem to run smoother because of the dedicated servers, whereas if I get on an actual player-hosted server, peer-to-peer, I can notice that these game mechanics like stopping power are a serious problem, in regards to lag. By the way, if you don't think you've been getting on dedicated servers, you might want to try playing ranked. I don't think they put this out there enough, but ranked matches get priority over social matches for servers. And since I'm talking about ranked matches, I'm just going to say the game desperately needs some kind of ranked matchmaking system. Something like Halo 2 or 3, where you win, you get points towards ranking up. You lose points towards ranking up. Maybe take your performance into account. So let's say it was a pure +1 -1 system. If you win and get MVP, you get +1.5. If you lose and you're at the bottom of the list, you get -1.5. If you lose and you're MVP, you get -0.5. So, something that is balance something that you can rely on, preferably not the Halo 3 system where you can get level locked, but something where you can actually see your progress and stuff, and something where it is win and skill based rather than just experience based like what we have right now. Since I'm talking about ranked matches, as far as social matches go, I still think they're a bad idea. I just don't think, as long as you have social matches in the sense that we have them right now, especially with no ranked ranking system, I don't think there's any incentive to play ranked matches. You play social matches, you go from one map to the next. It's just, there's no point in having ranked matches if you're going to have social matches. I'd like to rather just see social matches being taken out of the game and bring back public player matches from Gears 1. I think that was an infinitely better idea, mainly because you could set settings the way you wanted. If you wanted to play a sniper match, you could. If you wanted to play MLG settings, you could. And the thing was that people could join. So what I want to see is, social matches don't even have to go, but something that I want to see in Gears 3 is that the game has an option to server list a custom match, or a private match or whatever, so people can join your match without needing an invite or needing to be on your friends list. I mean, shit, if it came down to it, if they offered dedicated servers for something like that, I'd pay $20 a month or $20 for 100 hours of dedicated server usage. I'm sure a ton of people would too. It wouldn't have to all be peer-to-peer connections. Alright, so I guess that's really all I have time for. I mean, I had some other stuff I wanted to mention, but I don't really have enough time in this video. At some point, I'll get around to explaining some of the stuff I said, like how I said the hammer burst is overpowered, but that'll all be for different videos, for their own videos, because I can go into pretty good detail on those things. If you got this far in the video, thanks for watching it. Bye.